Good morning, Parkside. Welcome to this week's encouragement video. Thanks for tuning in. Boy, I tell you, I'm so glad to be back in the office in the States at Parkside. I was in Romania for about 2 weeks, loved the mission trip we were on there and everything that happened. Oh man, but I am so glad to be back with you. Looking forward to being back in the book of Genesis this Sunday and being with our church family. And so in this encouragement video, I just want to share a little bit about our trip to Romania and some of the things we saw God do, because it was so encouraging in my life, in the lives of those who went. It was myself, Kurt Henry, Phil Zimmerly, Jake Mulligan, and Chad Smith. We had a tremendous time. I know you were praying. Thank you. Let me share a brief overview. We did a basketball camp there in a city of about 300,000 people. Missionaries say that if an area is 2% Christian or less, that constitutes an unreached people group. There's no gospel witness there. There aren't enough Christians to sustain churches and that sort of thing. This city of 300,000 is at 0.5% Christian. So the church could quadruple in size in the city of Craiova, and it would still be an unreached people group based on kind of common stats that missionaries use. So we went, and the missionaries hoped that we could have 50 kids come to the camp. They thought that would be successful for an evangelical church to put on a camp. It would be stigmatized already. The priests from the Orthodox Church tell people that Protestants are vampires and drink blood and can be cannibals. And so there's all this misinformation out there. And so the camp helped to establish credibility for the church. That the Christians are not crazy people. They're not vampires. They actually care for you and want to serve you. They say we're going to build a social platform and meet social needs as we work towards a spiritual platform and meeting spiritual needs. At the end of the camp, we had so 50 kids was the goal. We had about 115 sign up. It was amazing. We were so thrilled for that. At the end of the camp, we had all the parents invited. We had about 80 parents show up to the celebration where the pastor of the church was able to share the gospel, was able to invite their kids back to youth camp and to church. They do a Saturday night youth group. And so following the week of camp, they had about 10% of the kids at the camp came to youth group. And then on Sunday morning, they had about 10 people come to church just from the camp, families included in that. So we're just praising God for how he's strengthening his church there. I had the opportunity to preach the Sunday we were there and just to see how things were going. It was really encouraging. That's a bit of the overview. Let me give you two quick stories on how we saw God specifically at work. One of them was I went out to a village one day, maybe 2,000 people in the village. And the pastor there told me, he said, this region has all kinds of witchcraft. They have conferences for witches. Like in the US, we have conferences for pastors that our pastors here at Parkside go to, and there'll be hundreds or thousands in attendance. There they have conferences for witches because witchcraft is so big and hundreds of witches will flock to the area. So we're out in this village and there's a witch who is just antagonizing the church. And so the pastor prays, Lord, convert her or remove her. He starts praying that. And a week after he starts that prayer, the witch dies. It's kind of shockwaves through the community. And so they send another witch to replace her. And the pastor again prays, Lord, remove her or convert her. And a week later, the witch dies. Shockwaves through the community. You get kind of chills thinking about it. And so they send another witch. And the pastor says, I actually started to feel bad because I don't want to pray these people into hell. I want them to get saved. So I changed my prayer, he said. I prayed, Lord, do something about this. He was looking for a more general prayer. And he said, after a long while, that witch died as well. And slowly that reign of witchcraft on that village started to lift. And so I got to go to a man's house who had become a Christian recently. He was a hardened criminal in his previous life. He would take axes to police cars and destroy them. And we had to sit and talk to this man who'd been changed by the gospel, life radically turned around, no longer being angry. He got out of jail and the police said, we don't know what to do with this guy. He used to be such a hardened criminal and now he's so gentle. What could have happened to him? And as we sat at this man's house, he said to me, Pastor Justin, my only regret is that I didn't hear about Jesus sooner. Oh, wow. It was amazing to be there and hear about the spiritual warfare, the power of prayer. Folks, pray for your missionaries, pray for your neighbors, pray for your church, for your the members of the church, those in your Sunday school class, your community group. Pray for your pastors. Prayer changes things. But it was so wonderful to hear the testimony of this guy's changed life as well. Let me give you another story. The first day of camp, at the end, 5 minutes to go, we had a major bummer take place. Maybe you've heard about it. Our team leader, Kurt Henry, tore his Achilles tendon, with like 5 minutes to go in the camp. And so obviously that was just a gut punch to everybody. And so we decided, hey, we got to get to the hospital right away, get an assessment, figure out what's going on. We suspected it was an Achilles, but we didn't know for sure. So the Romanians said to us that, hey, we've got to call our friends who have connections at the hospital. When you go to the hospital, to the ER, you'll often wait for 5 hours before anybody will see you. It is already 7:30 at night before we're leaving. So I'm thinking, boy, we're going to be seen 2:30, 3 in the morning, a couple of hours. We're actually not going to sleep at all tonight and then come back and have to do camp tomorrow. So we started calling around, and sadly, they couldn't get in touch with anybody who had connections. So we just went to the hospital, recognizing this might be a really long night, and it could be really difficult. The girl who drove the car that I rode in, her name was Elena. She didn't know much about basketball, but she was at the camp helping out. Her story is really important, and just bear with me because it's kind of a winding story, but it's important to see. Several months prior, Elena had been invited to church by a friend. She was not a believer. She came to church for a bit, and then she said, I don't know why, but I just felt the Spirit of God telling me I should read the Bible. I had the sense, you should read the Bible. And I didn't know why, but I did. And as I read the Bible, I discovered a God who was not angry at me, but was my friend. And so I started talking to God as a friend, and I received his love, and I became a Christian. And this was maybe 4 months before we arrived, and she's saying, I want to get involved in the church. I want to start serving in the church. So she came to basketball camp because a friend invited her to church. God's Spirit worked in her life, brought her to salvation. And she said, I want to be part of the mission of God. How can I help? When Kurt got hurt, she said, well, I can drive. I have a car and I know English, and so I can be a translator, so I'll drive you guys down there. So we couldn't find anybody with connection to the hospital, so we just go, and Elena drove my car. We get to the hospital, and Elena's mother calls her. And says, Elena, what are you doing? She's, well, I'm at the hospital. And, well, why are you at the hospital? Well, I was at this basketball camp. This guy got hurt. I'm there. Her mom says, well, which hospital are you at? And she tells her, and she says, well, my best friend is actually a doctor at that hospital. Let me see if she's working tonight. So her mom calls her best friend. Turns out her friend is working. And it turns out that this friend previously served at the Queen's Hospital in the UK. And so she's maybe the best doctor in the entire city of Craiova. And we don't need a translator because she's fluent in English. The hospital there is kind of a mess. The waiting room was really dirty, and so the missionaries, and crowded, and the missionaries told us, hey, don't wait here. There's a lot of bacteria. You ought to wait outside. So we're sitting out on the sidewalk eating pretzels for dinner because it was the only food we could find. And this doctor walks through the ER, skips past everybody, comes out onto the sidewalk, greets us by name, gives Kurt a quick assessment, says, okay, I think this is what's wrong, but we're going to get you taken care of. She grabs the wheelchair, she wheels him past everybody who's there, wheels him straight to the x-ray room, gets him taken care of, orders the medication that he needs, gives really good counsel. We've been just praising God for this. And our entire visit from arrival, waiting, seen by the doctor, get our medicine and out, was less than 2 hours. And it was just a remarkable way where God showed us with his sovereign hand he was going before us, that we tried by every means possible to call people with connections to that hospital. And yet he had a plan for that we were going to get to the hospital, and then a mom would randomly call a daughter. Randomly. Random doesn't exist in the Christian's vocabulary, or at least it shouldn't. And he would provide for us in that way. And why was that girl driving us there? Because she had said, I want to take a step of obedience, and I want to serve the church in a way that I'm not gifted, but I want to be there and be part of what God's doing. And why was she there? because a friend had invited her to church and said, you need to hear about this Jesus who's changed my life. And so, friends, it is just incredible to see God at work in this church in Romania, Hope Church, and the things that is happening there. So we had a wonderful trip. It was wildly encouraging for us. I hope those couple snippets are encouraging for you. If you'd like to hear more, I want to just invite you to go talk to Kurt Henry, go talk to Phil Zimmerly, go talk to Jake Mulligan, Chad Smith, or myself, because we would love to tell you more. I realize that it's already 10 minutes here, and we could give you more stories, but I'm trying to be as brief as I can. This Sunday, we will be in Genesis 48 and 49, so I'd encourage you to read ahead there. I started digging into the preparation yesterday, and my eyes were just being opened up by God's Spirit to see things I didn't know were there. I'm super excited to preach those two chapters this coming Sunday, so I hope you'll read ahead, make some notes, look for what God may be saying there before we get to it. Parkson, I love you. I hope you're having a great summer. I look forward to seeing you Sunday and being back together, hearing your voices as we sing. And we'll see you Sunday. Thanks. Have a good one.